Hello, welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all, but sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be. Good day and good evening to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. We have with us today Amy Lansky, author and great sage of our times. We're going to learn from her about energy, the field, consciousness, all of these buzzwords of today, and hopefully we will move that energy forward to a better world. We have Dr. Deepak Sharma of the Orbits Clinic with us to bring insights from the other side of the planet. And Phyllis Georgic is with us via the chat, so get on the chat. Or you can call in to 919-518-9773 in the U.S. or via Skype at Computers 2K Voice. We look forward to hearing from you, from your comments and questions. We have an important topic today about homeopathy, resonance, the simillimum, active consciousness, and it's going to be wonderful. If you're just tuning in, go get your friends to come in now because we're just starting. Okay, let's just say hello to everybody. Make sure we can hear everybody, okay?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, this is Amy.
Wonderful to have everyone. And Phyllis, if you call in to 919-518-9773, you'll also be on the line, or anybody else who has a comment or question.
Skype.
Oh, through Skype to Computers 2K Voice.
Correct.
Okay. So, Amy Lansky is the former NCH, National Center for Homeopathy Executive Board member, PhD, author of Impossible Cure, The Promise of Homeopathy. She's going to talk about her new study and expand our thinking. She has a background in computer science and is a passionate homeopath. We're going to learn about today's reality from, I guess, the quantum level. And we're going to learn about her investigation into active consciousness, awakening the power within. That's the title of her new book. And possibly you might pick it up and read an excerpt or two. Let us know what you're saying in there to whet our appetite. You're going to draw parallels with synchronicity and scientifically studied aspects of mysterious fields like PSI, psi, and morphic fields. And we're going to maybe channel in words of Hahnemann today. Who knows? So let's get started. And tell us where you would like to begin.
Okay, well, what I'm really going to be talking about today at some level is the intersection of my two books. I mean, most of you are familiar with I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Are familiar with my first book, Impossible Cure, because that's become really popular in the homeopathic world. And about, I think it was around 2005, I realized I wanted to write a book about consciousness. I had written a paper many years ago, long before my homeopathy book, called Consciousness as an Active Force. And I put it out on the web, and many people responded to it. So around in 2005, actually I was sitting at an NCH board meeting when I realized I was going to write a book based on that paper. And so that this new book, which is Active Consciousness, and you can go to my URL, which is activeconsciousness.com, came out in about almost 2 years ago now, actually. And the part I'm going to talk about today is the part of the book that's talks about homeopathy, but its relationship to these other phenomena. So why don't I just begin, and everybody can ask questions and stuff, but what I want to gloss over is the fact that we know that homeopathy does work. Obviously, we're homeopaths, so we know that clinically it works, and we're starting to understand how it works from a physical point of view, because we're learning about structured water. Material scientists and biophysicists are starting to, open-minded ones, are starting to understand that really there may be a mechanism for homeopathy. In fact, I got to mention this because I just listened to a talk 2 days ago. If you go on YouTube and type in Gerald Pollack, Gerald Pollack, Pollack. It's a brilliant talk. He's I think a biophysicist, professor at University of Washington, has this talk about structured water, basically, and it's revolutionary, and I think will help point the way for homeopathy as well. But anyway, so we're making a lot of progress there, but the question is, why does the law of similars work? Okay, we're starting to understand that, yes, these little pills have some information encoded in them, and we're getting it. But why does the law of similars actually cure us? So, and that's what I really want to talk about today. Really, it's all about what Hahnemann said. It's the law of similars. The likes cure likes. And what does that say? What does that say about our greater universe? And so that's what I'm really going to talk about. The law of similars is, in medicine, is the medical application of a larger law of the universe based on resonance, which is that when things vibrate similarly, they interact in a certain way, and in our body, it's a curative principle. But it's not just, from our standpoint as homeopaths, that's useful, but it also says something about how this other realm of energy, the energetic world, works in general. So the same mechanism that underlies the law of similars is also going to explain other phenomena of our greater energy body. So not just the etheric body. So let me just take a little step back, which is that let's look at the human being as not just the physical body, but as a series of layered bodies. We call that, this is my personal belief system, I talk about it, and the belief system of many esoteric teachers, that we have these many these energy layers. They're not one on top of the other, but they're interpenetrating. So we have our physical body, we have the etheric body, which I view as equivalent to the vital force, or chi, or prana, and then there's other even deeper layers, the astral body, the mental body, the causal body. So I talk about these in active consciousness. And the law of similars may tell us something about how all these bodies work. So let's think about this concept of resonance. And it's actually related, as Debbie said, to these other fields that people have been talking about. All these fields are either the same or they're related to one another. And I have various ideas I talk about in active consciousness. I sort of develop sort of a, not a cosmology, but a sort of a theoretical idea about what these different fields are and how they're interrelated with each other, and how we can actually use them to change reality, to actually have the power of active consciousness ourselves and affect how our trajectory through 3D space and time. So, and hopefully I'll get to some of that too. But let's just begin by me relating the phenomenon of resonance to these other things people have talked about. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Rupert Sheldrake's morphic field. So a lot of you may have heard of Rupert Sheldrake. He is really a genius of our time. Of course, people attack him the same people who attack homeopathy attack Rupert Sheldrake. Let me step back a little bit and go, what's a field? Okay, a field, what's a field? We have a general feeling of what that is, but really a field technically is a region throughout which a force can be exerted. So we all are more familiar with the magnetic field or the gravitational field. So a magnet can exert a force through this magnetic field, but also the magnet can affect other things, and other magnets can affect each other. So things exert a force upon a field, and a field can also exert a force upon things. So if you think about it that way, what if consciousness is a field? So when we receive thoughts, when we receive consciousness, we're being affected by the consciousness field, and our own consciousness is affecting that field. Same way as with like magnets or gravity. So what Rupert Sheldrake talked about is what he called the morphic field. And what he said is that similar or related things that are related to each other, like members of the same species, affect each other through what he called the morphic field, through the property of resonance. So somehow animals, let's say, who are of the same species, they're going to pick up on information in the morphic field, just like they have their own like radio station, their own little antenna, and they're picking up information from each other. So he gives various examples. Sheldrake is he's a biologist. So he points out that, for example, animals at very distant locations on the planet have evolved in similar ways. So if evolution is purely random, driven by random mutations, that wouldn't occur because there's no interchange even between the physical bodies of these animals. But yet, they've gone through similar evolutionary steps. And he posits, his theory is that they are communicating through this morphic field. There's other examples of even non-living items is happening. For example, in the area of crystal formation, if, and scientists will create crystals in the laboratory, and the very first time they create a crystal, it's very hard to form it. But subsequent times, even if these labs are far apart, have not had any communication, the crystals become easier and easier to generate. And so he posits it's the same thing. There's a morphic field that these crystals that have already been formed make it easier for the subsequent crystals to form. So this field through which we all through which similar things communicate, maybe, for example, for humanity, the collective unconscious. We're all beginning to realize, as Debbie said, that we're all interconnected. What happens, thousands of miles away affects us through this field. We're all human, so we're like tuned into the human channel. And of course, people who are related to each other, and especially loved ones, like a man and wife, are really much more connected to each other. And Sheldrake goes even further, and he says that our thoughts are not in our brains, in our heads, but they are actually stored in the morphic field, and we receive them. They're our own very personal, private channel, and we pick up on them very well because they're exactly our thoughts. So he goes on to say that, genes, like people are talking about what are all the junk DNA,
Say that again. What are all the junk?
But there's, now that they've done these studies with about DNA, and they find out there's lots of the genome they don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah, and they call it junk DNA.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because they don't understand it, they just toss it aside?
No, that's just what they're calling it. But
Okay.
but some of that might be explaining how. Really, what he believes is that all that DNA really is, what our physical bodies are, we're just receivers for receiving the information from the morphic field. Just the way your TV set is receiving the signal from, from around us. The TV isn't storing the TV, well, the VCR might be, your DVR might be recording, storing material, but in general, old-fashioned TVs, you're just receiving the information, and there's a correlation between the operation, the activity inside your TV set and what you're seeing on the screen, but it's not generating the program itself. And so but in the same way, your brain is only receiving information from this morphic field, and it's not storing it in your brain. Your brain's just a machine for receiving it. Your DNA is just a machine for receiving this information, even for how your body works. So he even says, we don't really understand why your genes create the body we have. We don't totally understand it. We know it has something to do with generating the body, but we really don't understand how that happens. And he's saying that's because it's not all in the genes. The genes are just the machinery. The actual information is in the morphic field. So
what about, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If I may interrupt.
Yeah.
What about like creativity? Like we have our own innovations, things that we're putting out that, like you described the crystal, that's the first crystal that's so difficult to do. And so somebody, Amnon, my producer, creates perpetual motion, a machine, and somebody else across the planet is also working on a similar concept. And now it's starting to blossom because he's developed this idea. And it's his creativity. Is this still in the morphic field?
Yeah, you actually see that, right? When people start creating a new invention, often people are simultaneously creating them at other places. That happens a lot. I know it happens in many scientific fields, that things leak out that way. They're not leaking it, it's just in the field. So you can see that in science. There's often simultaneous discoveries that happen.
I just had an idea. You see my clouds? Like, all this information is in the cloud. And we're just we're just pulling it down. We're just like
we're starting to understand that cloud in computing, but it's really there. Actually, it's the nature of the universe. Okay, I'm going to give you one. Okay, now I'm going to move on to a different thing beyond Sheldrake. But Sheldrake is truly a genius. I recommend also his latest book. In the United States, it's called Science Set Free, but I like the title in the UK better. It's called Science Delusion. But it's very interesting. All his work talks about this stuff. It's really cool. So another area where the same aspect of resonance is in play is work in psychic phenomena. And I've been really lucky. I talk about this in active consciousness because of various synchronicities in my life, and I'll talk about synchronicity too, has brought me in contact with some of the leading researchers in psychic phenomena. Believe it or not, my husband actually did some programming for this guy, Dean Radin, who wrote this book called The Conscious Universe. And he just came out with a new book called Supernormal. I can't remember. His name's Dean Radin, R-A-D-I-N. So he did this experiment at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He called it the Love Experiment. And what they did was they take couples who are connected, and first of all, there had been many experiments where they put the two people in different chambers. They have no way of communicating, seeing each other. They're behind these double shielded magnetic, these rooms, and then they hook up electrodes to them. And if they do things like shine lights in one of their eyes or play noises and stuff, the other couple will respond. The other member of the couple will respond. Their brain waves and heart rate will respond similarly. So that was a phenomenon people already knew. In this love experiment, what they did was they took a bunch of couples, and there were control couples as well. And some of the couples, one of the spouses was had cancer, so they were going to send healing intentions to the one with cancer. And they trained them in various meditation techniques and techniques for being able to communicate their intent. And then they randomly signaled to the person who was sending the intent the moments at which they were going to send the healing intention. And they found, and they didn't even know, the people who were receiving it didn't know when it was happening, how long it would happen, or anything. And they found that, yes, indeed, during the times at which the healing intent was sent, their bodies were starting to synchronize with each other. And they put electrodes and all kinds of things on their physical body to record their signals.
So is this prayer? Is this the power of prayer?
That is the power of prayer, but it's even more significant when the person praying for you knows you is your spouse, because you already have a connection with them, like through the morphic field, for example, because you're more similar in essence. You have a similar connection with them. They've even found, for example, so then I'm going to tell you about this idea with random event generators. I don't know if you've heard about this because Radin talks about it all the time. So they knew this phenomenon, so they decided, okay, let's take these things called regs, random event generators of various types. These are mechanical devices, various forms, electronic devices, mechanical devices, pneumatic devices, and they generate random signals that are truly random, by the way, because they're not generated by the computer, which isn't true randomness. They're generated by take ambient noise from the atmosphere and creating randomness through that. And so they put these random devices at events where everybody was kind of in the same wavelength. So at sporting events, music concerts, things like that. And they found that at these events, when people were on the same wavelength, so essentially like resonating, that the behavior of the random generators went away became non-random. They became more coherent. And so they said, okay, so now let's do another experiment. And they took 50 random event generators and spread them all over the world to see if the random event generators would pick up on major world events, with the idea that if during these major world events, people would be somehow they would be resonating together, and that these machines, and these are machines, would pick up on it. And that it did indeed happen. They found that during really negative events, like when Princess Di died, but the most effect on these machines happened at 9/11. So they did this for 13 years, and the biggest effects were on 9/11, and in fact 2 hours before the Twin Towers were hit. So we all had there was a collective precognition of this event. The random event generators were picking up on the event, and it was the biggest effects that they'd experienced for all over 13 years of doing this. I'm going to tell you about one other thing about the psi field. This is the field in which the psi field is the field in which psychic phenomena like this happen. The work my husband did, he was working at a research institute that Dean Radin was at, and Dean said, "Oh, will you program this for me?" So I know this is true. My husband did the programming for it. He can come out here and testify. But what he programmed from him was this experiment where people were shown images of either very benign things like a spoon or a teacup or something really horrific like gore or violence, sex, things that would really stimulate you. And if you were going to see things that were horrible, you would also hear horrible noises. So, and then they would measure people's responses to it. So, of course, when people saw calm things, they felt calm, and if they were seeing horrible things, their body responded as you might expect. But the thing they were really testing to see is if people could know beforehand. So what would happen was the computer would randomly choose what thing was going to come next. So every few seconds or so you would see the next thing randomly chosen by the computer. And what was amazing was that people would react appropriately before they saw the image. So this was a test of precognition that we know often beforehand what's going to happen.
So if we're personally in touch with this inner knowing, can we prevent a poor response? In other words, a lot of times we don't act properly if we're acting in fear, like if they're showing these horrible images. So if we have a premonition, let's say, we might call it that, a premonition, or getting in touch with our intuition. So if we know that, then we automatically take a detour when we're driving somewhere, or do something to say, why don't you stay home, honey, and not go wherever it is. And is this our unconsciousness picking up signals from the morphic field, or what is that?
Yeah, well, all of these phenomena share various things, and one of them is that distance and time don't make a difference. Mm-hmm. So, I could talk about the remote viewing studies too. I don't want to talk about that now, but it doesn't matter when it's going to happen in the future or the past. You can tune into it, and it can be at great distances. So yes, we are receiving information, and there's ways to enhance your receiving of that information. Okay. And I believe, what active consciousness is also about is that you can change your trajectory too, right? And
I want to do that. I want to change my trajectory.
One of the reasons I wrote my book, like Debbie and I were discussing before this call began, one of the reasons I wrote my book is I think we need to change our trajectory collectively, humanity, because we are not on the right trajectory, obviously. I'm hoping actually that we are changing and that things are actually already better than they might have been. But we'll see, won't we? But okay, let's see. I'm looking at, actually, while I'm talking to you, I'm looking at these slides from a talk I've given on this subject. So. Okay. Now I want to get into homeopathy and the relationship with homeopathy, but I'll say one more thing about the similar kind of field effect that, and this relates to what we just were saying, is that all these teachings by people like Esther Hicks, The Secret, the Abraham teachings, are all saying that your vibratory state, the state you're in, affects what events occur to you in your life. So, and the way they all kind of talk about it is that if you are, let's say, you said in a state of fear, you're going to attract the state you're in. And if you want to achieve something, the way to achieve it is to be in the state of vibration of that goal, the thing you want to achieve. So, and that's one of the applications of what I call active consciousness in my book. I'll explain what I mean by active consciousness. I'll just say that now, okay? Most of us think of consciousness. The word consciousness has many definitions, and that's one of the problems if you look in the consciousness literature, in the academic consciousness literature. And I like to describe it as sort of you can think of passive consciousness and active consciousness, and you can think of passive versus active, and the other thing is shallow versus deep. So most people, when they say I'm conscious, that's shallow conscious. That just means you're awake, you're not sleeping. A robot can have shallow consciousness because a robot can be paying attention and passively receiving information. I used to work in that field, right? And that part of us, that's just the machine, is really no more conscious than a robot is in a way. We're just receiving information, yes, and that's the way a conventional scientist thinks of us. And then also from a shallow perspective, you can act. you can change the world around you. You can move your body, you can talk, you can do these things. But then there's this notion of deep consciousness, which is what? When we have passive, deep consciousness, we may be receiving information, for example, from some higher source, from the morphic field, or from our higher self, or from this another energetic source of information that we normally don't receive from. But then we can also act. We can have deep active consciousness. So we can be operating from this deeper perspective, but actually affecting the consciousness field. And that's what I mean by active consciousness in my book. Deep, active consciousness. So you're actually creating change in the field around us, in this consciousness field, from a deep perspective. So that's what I'm talking about, active consciousness. So let's go, let me move.
We are interacting with the field. So
Yes.
we are moving the direction of the field by our response. When the field stimulates us or we receive a stimulation, will we ignore it? Will we pay attention to it? What will we choose to respond to? And by doing that, it moves us in a new direction.
Right. And of course we do that every day from a shallow perspective. If we just walk to the grocery store, we're affecting the field around us, right? But I'm claiming that this can be done in a much more profound way. And that if it's, let's say you want to, if our goal is to create world, or let's just say to spread the idea of homeopathy. I mean, we can do actions in the world, but we can also do things at a deeper level to make that happen, to make that easier for it to happen. And I think that's partially what's happening also with homeopathy. So let's talk now about synchronicity. Because synchronicity, I believe, is a mechanism. Is sort of, you know, we all think of our outer world operating in terms of cause and effect. You know, you push the glass and the glass tips over. Okay? But synchronicity is another mechanism that makes things happen. We call it coincidence, but I claim it's not coincidence. It's just a mechanism. I hate to use the word mechanism, but it's a way in which things happen in this deeper field. And so what is a synchronicity? A synchronicity is when objects, people, emotions, dreams, events, things, anything like that happens, if they have a similar vibratory state, they resonate with each other, and then they co-occur. They occur at the same time and the same place. So we all know, like, the classic story of synchronicity. I mean, Carl Jung came up with this term, and he came up with it. The first instance he talked about was he had a patient who was recounting a dream about this golden scarab, and the scarab was symbolic of her mental state. The mythology of the scarab was symbolic of her mental state. So that's why she had that dream. She was in this state of vibration of her particular issue. The archetypal meaning of the scarab, you could think of even things like archetypes as a state of vibration out in the field. And in this case, the scarab was the symbol of her state of being. It was an ancient Egyptian mythological field of meaning. I use that term in my book, field of meaning, which I came up with. That was symbolic of her state. And then while she was recounting the dream, a very similar beetle came and rapped on the window of Jung's office, and he opened the window and it flew in. So all these events, which were very similar, the physical beetle, the dream of the beetle, and this woman's mental state, caused all these things to happen in the same time and place. That's what a synchronicity is. A similar
it sounds
thing
like an Edgar Allan Poe poem. The
Yeah,
raven tapping on my window.
That's right. The raven is like a symbol of magic in the Native American. Anyway, so.
And I want to invite Dr. Sharma, if you have any comment or question to participate, don't hesitate.
Yes, but I'm listening, Amy, and you always know I'm first listening and then speak. On
Okay.
the Amy, you are telling the truth in the energy base and the conscious part, but we are waiting for the applications in the homeopathy. How
Okay.
Yes,
these
okay,
consciousness are applied into the homeopathy. These are
okay.
the motto of the show. Yes.
So,
Okay. We will
so
vibrate.
now I'm going to, who was our great homeopath who connected synchronicity with homeopathy? It was Whitmont, Christopher Whitmont, who was both a homeopath and a student of Jung. And he said that's why the law of similars works. So, and I'm just going to quote now from Whitmont's book, Psyche and Substance, when he said that mental and physical symptoms are synchronistically, not causally, connected to one another. So thus we get a first glimpse of understanding how illness and similar drug energies, as synchronistic entities of the same field, substitute for one another and then cancel each other out. So what he basically was saying, Hahnemann had various theories about why the law of similars works. One was action and counteraction, which is the way our physical bodies work. Another one was, he said that the energy of the substance it's essentially a similar resonance as the patient. That's how we choose it, because this substance causes a similar vibration as the disease state. And so when you take the correct remedy, the similimum, it has a similar vibration as the patient. And so the second theory that Hahnemann had was that this resonance strengthens the vital force because they resonate together. When you have two things that are the same, two violin strings that are vibrating similarly, then it amplifies the sound. So similarly, the remedy that has a similar vibration as the patient resonates and strengthens the vital force so it can heal. But his next theory, his third theory about how it works, was similar to what Whitmont said, is that the remedy is like a counterfeit disease, and it replaces the disease in the vital force. So because it's very similar, it goes in and it does something because it's similar to affect the vital force. Actually, I talk about this in Impossible Cure, that disease can be thought of as as an attractor, a negative attractor in the body, and it's fixating the body in this state. And if you give the remedy, which is an attractor that's very similar to the disease state in the body, and so it's sort of like a fake. It tricks the body and it latches onto the disease attractor, and then it loses its fixation, and then it can actually move again and heal. So this is very similar to what Hahnemann was saying.
That sounds a little bit like our plastics today, phytoestrogens that are in the environment that are tricking the body and replacing the natural hormones.
That's interesting. That is true. So here's another way to think about it. And now this relates directly to my theory of active consciousness. So think about it. At each moment in time, your body is in a particular state in three-dimensional space and time. I talk about these these kind of mathematical theories in my book. It's easy to understand, don't worry. But like at each moment in time, we are in this position in 3D space and time. And there's many possible futures we can move into, because the world is even higher dimensional. If you had a 4-dimensional space or 5-dimensional space, there's infinite number of other 3-dimensional futures for us in that space. And physicists now do believe there are these higher dimensional spaces. So there's many parallel realities that we could move into. So at each moment, our body is going to make this choice. Are we going to continue having the disease, whatever it is, or are we going to start healing? So your body is going to make a choice between two next realities, one where the disease continues and the one where now perhaps the remedy is going to replace the disease with sort of a similar but fake disease, or at least your body, your disease, your fixation on the disease will be sort of snapped away and latched onto the remedy disease so that it can be freed. So all of this, though, is like a world beyond this whole mechanistic cause and effect, and it's all about similar vibrations, the fact that we do have these higher energy bodies. I mean, I believe homeopathy is really mostly working on the first level, the etheric body, but that I also have higher energy bodies that remedies, we know that we're healed not just on the physical level, but on a spiritual level too. So there are these higher energy bodies too. And it's all about this whole field. So you can be in a particular vibratory state, and you can pick up information you wouldn't normally have access to. The effects transcend the constraints of time and space, so you can pick up, it even affects machines, these random machines, and even the machines reacted to 9/11 before it happened, okay, because time and space don't matter in this whole world. And synchronicities are is a sort of a mechanism for how it works. And people who use these techniques for active consciousness, like, using the secret intention and stuff, synchronicities are a way it happens. So if you're using these techniques, you'll find that you have more and more synchronicities happen to you. Unlikely coincidences that bring you to what you're working on. So, so basically by being in a particular vibratory state, you can increase the chance that you're going to follow a trajectory through space and time that brings you to your goal state, and that synchronicities is one of the ways that's going to happen. So
as this message comes out, do we have to have subliminal messages on the internet, on television, on radio, telling everybody we need to bring peace into the world, we need to find harmony, to treat others the way we want to be treated, with kindness and all of those good attributes? Because the messages that the mainstream media and most places are giving us are so horrendously negative and frightening and hopeless.
That's right.
So what are we going to do to beam these good vibrations to everybody, that we're going to do something good in the, and is it only the morphic field, or is it in the psi field and the akashic field, or what?
Yes, I think that essentially all of these fields are related. I think the morphic field may be more related to the etheric level, which is connected to bodies, but I'm not sure. But I believe that the psi field, if the fields transcend time and space, which they tend to, that's an indication that it's beyond 3 dimensions. It's going to be in higher dimensional space, because I get into that in my book. But once you're above 4 dimensions, 4 or higher dimensions, that's when time and space don't make a difference anymore. And so you're going to be in the higher energy bodies, which are considered to begin at the astral level, the level above the etheric body. The etheric body, which is usually the vital force, is connected to this physical body. It's what keeps our physical body going.
We do need to live in this etheric body. We need to be aware of it and conscious of it and take care of it, really.
It's all there. I'm very lately into this other notion of Hawaiian shamanism, which is we forget about this whole other being, which is, anyway, you can read my newsletters, and I talk about.
Okay, we'll have to get your newsletter. You're going to be on again, Amy, because there's just too much to learn in 1 hour.
Yeah.
We got. Go ahead.
I want to say one thing, because the Dr. Sharma, is that your name? Talked about what about us as homeopaths? Besides how homeopathy works, how can we apply the information about active consciousness in my book? And I give my book teaches various meditation techniques, my theory about why these methods work. It's a very, people who've read Impossible Cure know that it's a very broad book. I try to cover all of homeopathy except what the remedies are and stuff. But it's a whole broad. So this book is sort of the same treatment of this whole consciousness field, and I try to bring it all together into this theory that talks about not what I just talked about today, but I relate it to the work of I'm going to forget. Kabbalah and Rudolf Steiner and Gurdjieff and all these esoteric systems. I relate it all together, plus give exercises. But anyway, as homeopaths, we can use these techniques for various things. One is obviously just to develop ourselves as human beings, because that's going to enhance our ability to help our patients. Another one is to learn to be in better resonance with your patient's state. We all have that effect when you take a case. Sometimes you start getting their symptoms and stuff, but you can perhaps pick up better resonate with your patient's state better if you're in a state of meditative state and understand it better. Another one is just for selecting the remedy, is that perhaps it can provide intuition for selecting the correct remedy. And I think the last one is very important, which is our own healing intention for our patient. I remember my family's first homeopath said he knew if he was going to be able to cure a patient or not, because he just had this feeling. If he didn't have that feeling, it was more about him. Was he able to relate to the patient in a way so that he could have that healing intention with the patient? And it's important to examine your intention, your ability to achieve this vision of healing for your patient actually affects the outcome. Okay, it affects whether you are going to be able to heal your patient. So that's important to examine as well, because we are affecting our trajectory and your patient's trajectory through 3D space and time by your state.
And so that's why maybe some physicians or homeopaths or whatever healer you are, you attract certain patients, clients who come to you because you're going to get a better result with them, or you get a better understanding.
Or you as a person resonate better with them. So it's almost a synchronistic effect as well, because if a person is totally not in your realm of your vibratory state, they're not going to be attracted to you. Mm-hmm. I give tons of examples of synchronicity in my book, things that have happened to me. When we all know them, they often happen at key moments in our life, when we meet our life partner or get the best job. Often these things come to us through synchronicities. So I don't know. We only have a few more minutes, so maybe people want to ask questions. I can talk for hours about these things.
Amy, here is a question. How do you explain the dreams? It's a active consciousness, or the passive, or the third one?
Well, I'm gonna give you an answer that this is, I'm not sure if it's Steiner or Gurdjieff said there's various kinds of dreams. So some dreams, and he said that the type of dreams you have are based upon your level of development through meditation and other techniques. So some dreams merely are sort of more on a physical level, or just rehash of what's happened in your day, the most common one. Another type of dream is information coming to you from the inner self. So a dream that says, like his example is if you have a dream about a bunch of white pillars and then one pillar is dirty, that's a sign that maybe one of your teeth is infected or something. It's a dream often about your physical body, and it's giving you information about perhaps a disease in your physical body, or it's kind of giving you hints. Another type of dream is when you dream, your astral body separates from your physical body and is going out there and actually existing in this other world. That's a whole another subject that I've been learning more about.
Is that related to Thuya, or a person whose body they feel like their soul isn't in their body? Is that the
well, maybe Thuya's that sensation is correct. I mean, that sensation is correct for in reality, because our astral
Yes,
body
because
does that.
I asked this question because I am working on the dream of snakes since
Mm.
last 2 or 3 years, and I treated more than 600 cases of this type of dreams. Recently, I got a case which have a dream of traveling by the train. This is the
Hmm.
specific one in the patient, and when I got the reportization, the medicine is only Apis mellifica. This was the single medicine. So these are really fascinating about the dreams, and we must work on the specific part of dreams. So that
Well, for
why as
example,
I
so are you saying that the snake dreams tend to have a lot of train dreams?
yes,
Yes,
definitely.
and that makes
And
sense because if you are in a snake state, just think a train is kind of like a snake, and maybe it's also talking about your intestinal system. I don't know if that also relates.
yes, I will send you. I will send you my notes on the same topic and share the few things about the same dream. So I
Yeah.
must think that you will do a better work than me.
No.
If-
It's very important to know that, I wrote this book, my book, Impossible Cure, but I am not practicing homeopathy as a practitioner anymore. I did briefly, but I'm more of an educator to the general public. So I, I, I spend all my time helping people understand homeopathy, especially parents who have autistic children. But I'm more of an educator and researcher and not as much a homeopath. Though I did study homeopathy and I did practice a little bit, but my calling is more as an academic, which is what I've always been when I was a computer scientist, and now I'm doing this in my work in the consciousness realm. So now I'm giving talks about all this stuff. Actually, I'm trying to bring understanding of homeopathy to people in the consciousness field. So I'm giving talks more in that realm now. And it's making them think, oh my God, homeopathy. They don't know anything about it. So I'm hoping to bring homeopathy to a wider audience through this work. Because people don't understand. Homeopathy is the medicine of synchronicity. It's the medicine of consciousness. So it's just amazing, really.
yes,
Thank you
this
for
is
clarifying.
energy medicine. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
What
Any
else
other
would you like to impart to the listeners? We have, maybe thousands of people listening today who could be educated about the power of homeopathy in relation to their personal trajectory and the trajectory of the world. What can we tell them?
About homeopathy?
Whatever your message is, you have about 6 minutes.
Okay. Okay. I probably want to say more general things than. I was going to say one other theory. Do you think most of the listeners are homeopaths or not?
Mixed, but
Yeah.
whatever you feel,
Yeah.
whatever you're getting from the cloud, tell us.
Yeah. Well, let me just say one brief thing about another way all this information relates to homeopathy. As we all know, a good way to pick a remedy for something is based on some event that happened that
Right.
triggered the disease, a causal factor for the disease. So, for example, if a disease was preceded by a big grief event or a fright or something, often a remedy that's more related to grief or a fright will cure the disease, even if the symptoms have nothing to do with that remedy. And there is a lot of information in this world of psychic phenomena about something called retrocausation, that you can actually affect the past as well.
That's an important point to make. That's an important point to make. That's part of.
As I said, all these phenomena are time independent. So that's possibly another reason why, if you give the remedy that's based on the causal event, it can affect the past in some way or loosen the fixation the person develops around that event, so that it can be healed now. So that's much more way out. But there's been a lot of research, even conferences, about this phenomena called retrocausation, and I wonder if it's also related to this use of the causal, remedy around the causal event. So what else? Okay, so I guess here's what I want to spend my last 2 minutes on, which is what I call in my book the 4 steps of active consciousness. And I'm just going to leave them with you, and you can use them, okay? The first step, and read my book, really, it will explain it. The first step is called Now, I call it Now Plus, which is get in the now, the meditative state of being in the now, and the plus means in a state of loving kindness, so sort of similar to compassion meditation. And I believe that is the best framework for using active consciousness. Okay, the second state is to be in the goal state. So let's say your goal is to have world peace, okay, or to heal somebody. Well, let's not use healing somebody. Let's say world peace. So you want to be in the state of world peace with no doubt, with as little doubt as possible. Because if you're in doubt, then you're creating the other worlds you don't want. So you have to try to be in the goal state as much as you can. Then the third state is you get back to normal reality, and you have to just let go. You just have to trust that the universe is going to somehow work. Because you have lots of doubt, you're going to create the other realities. And then the fourth step is what I call choose joy, and that's what I'm going to leave you with. Choose joy, which is that you have to operate in the universe. You have to make choices, and your choices are going to affect the outcome. When you have to decide what you're going to do, choose joy. Choose the thing from a meditative point of view, not just to make yourself feel better, in the outer world, but go within, think about your choice, and choose the one that creates an internal sense of joy within you. And you will, I use this all the time now, just to make simple choices. Do I go to the party or not? And sometimes it's counterintuitive. You just have to trust your internal sense, and that from a deeper state of meditation. Just get settle within, and make your choice from a higher level of knowing, and that is going to work better. That's going to send you along the right path better. I'm not an expert. I'm not a guru, but I've been using this, and it does work. And people write to me who read my book, and they say it's working for them. And my book tries to explain why and how this works.
So you're meditating. You're meditating in joyfulness, kindness, loving kindness every day.
I try to.
Yeah, we try to.
I do, and I try to use this to help make my choices. So meditate, get into the goal state. Be in the state of vibration you want while you're meditating. Then when you come back to the universe, let go, trust. And 4, when you go through your day, make your choices, choose joy. I call it choose joy. So we all have to choose joy. So we have to make our choices not based on fear, but what feels joyful to us. And unfortunately, our world's telling us to make our choices based on fear. But that is going to create the opposite effect. So that's my final message.
I'm in 100% agreement with you. This has been a phenomenal show and very important messages. Is Phyllis on the line, or no? She's not called in. Okay, so Dr. Sharma, did you have final words today?
Yes, this is the really wonderful show, and we are all happy to listen Amy's thoughts and about the consciousness and how to link upward the law of similar. So it will be great and wonderful show. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
And Phyllis Georgic, our other co-host from Pennsylvania, is on the chat. She's been following the chat. I'll copy it and paste it into Homeopathy World Community. She says, make your wishes in detail and know all situations. Choose joy in the all-encompassing effect. We've had a phenomenal group of participants, listeners. Everybody needs to get this message. Next Monday, we are going to have as our guest Mary Aspinwall. She's going to talk about first aid and minor illness for autistic children with sensitive digestive tracts. And so we're going to probably learn a couple of hints and tips about homeopathy and what she's been doing with these children. It's also been your research as well, Amy. And many people are attempting to heal these children who have been affected. Basically, the connection between our gut, our digestion, what we eat, what we put in the environment, is all related to our neurology, our brain function, and how we function in society. And we're going to change the trajectory on that. So all these little bits of information keep coming in the news. I'm pulling in the positive technology on how to clean up our environment and our water and our air. So let's really focus on that. Sending lots of waves of awareness and tons of love. Until we see you, where Thursday, Alan Phillips will be on Blog Talk Radio. Wednesday, Blog Talk Radio, Christina Chambreau is going to be talking about pets and OCD in pets. Okay, see you next Monday as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.